Hey everyone, welcome to Module 2. We're going to talk about your project assignment, this project proposal about choosing your issue and your sources. So you kind of already chose your issue in the journal assignment last week. So we're going to kind of look at these guidelines and rubric for this particular assignment. It just kind of goes back over the scenario, kind of like how we talked about like what your final project is going to look like. Right? You're choosing a scientific issue, it's contributing to inequity within your community. You're basically going to present it to lawmakers. And you're going to write this summary paper. So you've already selected your issue and now you have to have sources that support it. So you're going to locate sources related to that particular issue that you chose. Whether it was water pollution or air pollution or climate change. And remember, we're trying to be very focused and specific. We don't want to just do a general overview of climate change because that can be very overwhelming. So you're going to find 3 sources. You can either get them from this project resource that I showed you last week, or you can find them on your own. You can go to the Shapiro Library. You can use web sources, whichever works best for you. You're going to create APA citation entry for each one. You're going to talk about the connections to that issue. Then you're going to select just one of those sources and you're going to work through this. Now there is a template that you can use, and I strongly recommend that you do use it because it will really help make sure that you don't forget anything. I'm going to kind of go over this particular project with you, give you some ideas. So, pick the topic that you chose. I had already given you guys like my instructor example of fracking. Please don't choose that topic because that's, that's kind of cheating. Unless you're looking at it from a different perspective than what my instructor, template gave you. So find those 3 sources. You're going to create an APA citation. You're going to talk about the connections between your STEM issue and the sources you selected. So basically, how do these sources relate to your knowledge of the issue at this point? What is your desired knowledge about this particular topic? So basically, like, what did you know beforehand? And then, like, what do you want to know? As far as, sources, like I said, you can go to the library and get peer-reviewed sources. Those are probably the best sources to choose, like primary sources. You can get like articles and things like that off the internet, but you need to be very careful about where you go and what you choose, because sometimes those can have a lot of bias in them, or they may not give you the entire issue that you need to have, or may not give you all the information. So then you're going to select one of those sources that you chose from the initial 3. You're going to use the SIFT method that you learned about in the module itself to determine the validity. The first part is talking about your initial reaction. So you want to make sure that you're not just answering yes or no. You are answering each question as fully as you can. So instead of saying yes, I do you recognize the source of information? Yes. You don't want to do that. So like, let's say that you got your source from the EPA. You would say, yes, I recognize, the EPA as a primary source, a government resource. Whenever it asks you the second question, does it elicit an emotional response in you? I'm going to say that these sources should elicit an emotional response. And then like, where is that emotional response coming from? So like, for instance, if I see something about, the loss of animals, like biodiversity loss, it makes me sad because I value, those animals. So that's kind of like my own personal bias, right? So we all have biases and we all have responses to things. So, that's what that question's kind of getting at. Does the source fit the purpose of your research? I sure hope it does. Otherwise, why are you choosing it, right? Because like you want it to support your research. And then how does this source shape your understanding of the issue? So basically, how does it help you understand like what's happening with whatever you chose? All right. Then the next part is, is this source present, or sorry, is it accurate, reliable information? So what do you know about where this source comes from? So did it come from a website? Did it come from a journal article? Most of the time, if you go to, government websites or like sciencedaily.com, it'll tell you where that source came from. When was it published? That's really important. Like, what's the date? You want to try and get sources that are definitely within the past, probably 3 years. 5 years is kind of pushing it. It might be outdated by then. Is the information in the source accurate? Is it peer reviewed? So meaning, did it go through a review process of a panel of experts? Or is it just, someone's random postings on the internet? Does it include references at the bottom? Who wrote it? Would you consider them an authority on the issue? So who's the author and are they an authority or not? For part 3, you're going to talk about, whether it's credible. So is this source the original source of the information, or is it more of just like a summarized or edited version? So a lot of like, if you go to like a lot of news websites, those are edited and summarized from an original source. Those aren't typically the original source of the information. So that's just something to bear in mind. So that's kind of like relying on another source for most of its information. And then how does knowing the origin of the information affect your confidence in using it for research? So for instance, if you know that the origin is from a particular journalist who tends to kind of jump the gun on things and post about things really fast, that might affect your confidence in it because they may not have all the information, right? They just got something out really quickly and didn't consider all the facts, right? So something that's kind of what that question is pointing to. And then you're going to get to your conclusion. So why is this source appropriate or not appropriate for your project? Again, this is kind of interesting that SNHU put this in here because like I would hope that you're picking sources that are appropriate, right? So after you evaluate it using the SIF method, is it credible? Is it relevant to your STEM issue? Does it have the information you need? And then does it show any type of bias that affects how you interpret or summarize this issue? So again, I have given you a, here's that template that SNHU provides you with. So you've got, your sources here, your connection. So that's why I say to use this template because it helps you make sure that you're answering every single part that you're going to be evaluated on with the rubric. So use this template. Now, this is my instructor example, right? I've got my sources listed here. I talk about the connection between them. I talked to you about, okay, I selected source 1. Here's my initial reaction. Why is it presenting accurate, reliable information? Why is it credible? Here's the, original source of it. And then, why is it appropriate? So like, you don't have to go crazy and write like a 5-page paper, right? Like this is just a quick paragraph after your sources, a paragraph about your reaction, pretty much like a paragraph answering each one of those questions. This one is just a sentence. And then of course, the end is just a couple of sentences. So again, no need to, write like a 10-page paper here. If you have any questions, please reach out. And I look forward to reviewing your project proposal.